Before names, before borders, before the first story was ever told around a fire, the planet was already listening, keeping score. Every storm, every drought, every flood, nothing was forgotten. For generations, we believed nature would simply absorb everything we took from it. The smoke, the concrete, the forests we cleared, the fossil fuels we burned, the silence that followed every warning. But nature has never been silent. Today, its voice is louder. The planet is speaking back. The question left for us is simple, and it is not comfortable. Are we finally ready to listen?
When we talk about climate projections, obviously they're not specific to a country. We do have a climate vulnerability index that is issued every year. We are at the top of it. We have been in the top 10 for the past decade and a half in that list. There are almost 200 countries, so we've been there. So whatever the projections are, depend on what actions we are going to take to save ourselves from the fallout of climate change. We like to be good, global citizens. So despite having very low emissions, we have said we'll reduce them further. Our trajectory of emissions growing is very fast. We are going to grow. That again is something that we have told the world, 2030, we need to grow. We need to get to a certain level of development for our people. After that, we will taper down. But I really don't see us reaching any of our development goals by 2030, which is when the SDGs are supposed to be complete. We are nowhere near finishing any of those markers. So there are the 17 goals. We have made claims earlier that we have completed a goal 10 years before the target date. We never finished things even after the target date. So that has showed up, that was a premature claim. So these are the things that we have to see, that Pakistan's position will depend on the actions Pakistan takes. But it cannot be country specific as far as climate change is concerned. It's a global problem. We are not the big emitter. Until and unless the big emitters reduce emissions, that whole cycle which has thrown the climate of the world out of sync is going to impact us.
The land beneath our feet appears solid, unmoving, permanent. But even the earth grows tired. Soil that once fed generations is becoming thinner. Fertile fields lose nutrients. Rain falls at the wrong time, or not at all. Communities that depended on predictable seasons must now adapt to uncertainty.
Because before they recover from one incident, another incident comes on, leading to chronic food insecurity, but also nutrition insecurity. The nutritional indices, especially in provinces like Sindh, are unacceptable. But this is largely a secondary effect of climate change. It is also important to understand that even a slight change in production as a result of one of the episodes leads to a large magnitude in terms of the food insecurity that is witnessed in the country. The most painful thing is that Pakistan, which is highly vulnerable, hardly contributes to the drivers that are leading to these problems. So it is really so painful. But also it is important to understand that as a result of the increasing effects of climate change, we are increasingly witnessing an increase in transboundary pests and diseases, both to the livestock and crop sector, but also invasive weeds are colonizing the vast rangelands, which are home to a large population of livestock. So to a certain extent, all these ecosystems are under threat, and it is a matter of urgency that we need to work around addressing, reversing this problem.
Today, the moment calls for the reverse. Let the private sector take the wheel. Let the government lead from behind, setting the policy, shaping the regulation, holding the framework steady so that our farmers can feed not only this nation, but help feed the world. We have the rivers, we have the land, we have the seasons, we have the farmers, we have the well. What remains is to act.
The next 10 years of agriculture will be very different from the last 50 years of agriculture. Today, when we talk about regenerative agriculture, we talk about sustainability, we are talking in corners in limited spaces. That needs to become a nationwide aspect where every farmer thinks in those directions, where every farmer thinks about regenerative agriculture, precision farming, water conservation, economic impact. Everything then has to become a nationwide thing rather than a few progressive farmers doing it. What we do realize is Pakistan needs to leapfrog. We cannot do this gradually as it has happened in more advanced agriculture economies like the EU, even in the North America, even in Australia, where this change has come gradually. Pakistan will have to, as I said, leapfrog, take that leap of faith. The tools are there already. What we need to do, and where Syngenta's role becomes increasingly important, is to bring those technologies to Pakistan, scale them very fast. Because as I said, the next 10 years or 15 years of agriculture in Pakistan will have to be very different from the last 50 years if we have to continue building agriculture. The population that we are looking at in the next 10 to 15 years is around 8 to 10 billion worldwide. The land is not increasing. If anything, the land is decreasing in terms of urbanization and encroachment, and we are losing land to waterlogging, salinity, erosion, even the sea level rising. So the land is scarce here, the population increasing, you have more mouths to feed, and you need a shift change rather than a gradual change. And that's where Syngenta comes in, bringing in technologies from worldwide to Pakistan and enabling the Pakistani farmer to grow even more.
Two of our largest biscuit production lines now run entirely on solar power. We have lands that unfortunately are not cultivatable anymore. Even the lands that we had that were cultivatable are now, because of climate change, becoming uncultivatable. So we need to pump up the solar production and use that and take the reliance off the grid. Water conservation, we remain committed at EBM to reducing our fresh water consumption by 25% by installing effluent treatment plants, ETPs as we call them, to treat and reuse water across our facilities. That's what we're currently doing right now. Waste management and upcycling is something we take very seriously at EBM. 85% of our packaging today is either recyclable or made from recycled materials. This is currently what we're already doing. Our transformation of 12 tons of multi-layered plastics into recycled composites has reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 42 tons, while simultaneously, contributing to eco-friendly road infrastructure. The biggest asset that we have in Pakistan is our youth, but the demographic dividend is growing. Now, if I don't have a healthy youth population and a deteriorating climate, yes, I'm worried today, but I'm furthermore worried for the next 20 years. This is our workforce. The youth of today are our professionals in the next 20 years. If they are malnourished, if they don't have a healthy environment that go hand in hand, here we are today. What is to be of us as Pakistan and as Pakistanis in the next 20 years?
Rivers that once carried life now carry loss to the same towns their ancestors settled beside. Glaciers that stood still for 1,000 years are breaking apart in silence, no one is left to witness. And the seas no longer stop politely at the shore.
So last century was when human beings were using fossil fuels and continue to do so. But in the last century, they threw so much of carbon and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that this century is all about the results of that. And that result is almost entirely on water, whether it is boiling oceans, whether it is melting glaciers, changes in ocean currents, changes in patterns of rainfall and winds, and whether it's drying up rivers. So the entire water cycle has been disrupted. And that is what people are not understanding. We are still talking about carbon. We are still talking about greenhouse gases. The point is that that damage is already done. We are not going to be able to reverse it. The tipping point of which the scientists spoke is already arrived. It was to be 1.5 degrees hotter world by the end of this century, but we are already there. And if we get to 2 degrees centigrade warming all over the world by the end of this century, it will be almost impossible for human beings to survive.
The air was never empty. It carried everything we ever gave it: smoke, heat, ash, and it kept every trace, the way skin keeps a scar.
Punjab government today is doing a lot with the Punjab Cleaner Action Plan. And that action plan only got started last year. It will take a few years before we get to see the results of that in terms of measurable results where your air quality monitors are showing you improved air pollution, or you can see blue skies every day. Today, none of that is happening. So we're at the cusp of things happening. The government has thrown a lot of effort and resources into it, and a lot needs to happen. Transportation emissions need to be curtailed. Fuel quality needs to be improved. Public transportation needs to be revamped. Brick kilns need to be banned. Crop residue burning needs to be addressed. So a lot has to happen, but these challenges are at the same time not impossible. When you say it like that, and there's a lot to be done, but at the same time, other cities have solved their air pollution problem. And we don't have to only look at the developed world, such as Los Angeles solving its air pollution problem in the 1990s. Beijing in China, just in the last 10 years, has solved air pollution. So why can't we, in Lahore, especially in Pakistan, show that we can do it even faster?
We are replacing, under the Punjab Clean Air program, we are replacing the two-wheelers and three-wheelers as pilot from Lahore as our smog mitigation plan. We have a smog mitigation resilient plan, which again has monitoring and evaluation embedded into it, targets and milestones also. And with all what we've done in a year and a half, 2 years, about 35% of PMT 2.5, according to the international website, we have reduced over last year and a half. So whatever we are doing, it seems to be working, seems to be having an impact, but a lot needs to be done, of course, in other parts, also other areas as well, other sectors also. The stubble burning, there were about 300 superseders when we started off, and they were only available to the farmers who could afford it. The Chief Minister started a subsidy program for superseder, and as I speak to you, 6,000 superseders are working in the fields of Punjab, which has really, really impacted and reduced the stubble burning in this winter season when it was wheat sowing and rice harvesting season.
What we are doing is we are investing in sustainable aviation fuel, right? And we're also giving this opportunity to our customers to partner with us and use our Go Green service to invest in SAF, which is sustainable aviation fuel. And I think this is a key sort of initiative from DHL Express towards climate change and reduction in carbon emission. If you look at our customer base, they don't just come from one industry, right? We are managing customers from textile, automotive, healthcare and life sciences, and other industries, right? And so our solution is not just restricted to one. So when we offer SAF, that is across all industries. That provides an opportunity for every industry to participate, right, towards carbon emission reduction, climate, reducing the impact of climate change, etc.
At the policymaking level, while most of us are involved in ESG from a voluntary perspective, so I think the element of discretion should now be minimized, and we need to sort of bring it more towards the compliance bit, and each and every commercial entity, because whenever you are involved in commercial operations, there is an environmental obligation which comes very natural to it. So it should not be my discretion; it should be my obligation. So this is how the policy should evolve. And energy companies, for instance, in the case of OGDCL, to be specific, for instance, we are in the upstream petroleum sector, and our business is to explore and exploit and develop indigenous oil and gas within the country. So, starting from the very seismic drilling of wells, and then establishing a gas processing facility or a crude oil handling facility. So, all these activities have to be done. One, there are two aspects. One is the regulatory and the legal aspect, and the other part is the overall ESG culture. So, whatever the environmental laws are there, in terms of how you have to undertake your seismic, how the wells are to be drilled, how the water is to be disposed of, it is to be treated, taking care of the community, taking care of the flora and fauna. So those have to be fully complied with. So that is the regulatory part. So I would say that there is no room for substantial compliance. It has to be a full and complete compliance of the regulatory and legal framework. That is one bit. The other is the ESG bit, which talks about how you intend doing more than what you're required to under the law, and that is to do with establishing a culture where we are sensitized about the importance of environment, the importance of the habitat, so that we undertake our activities in a manner which is sustainable and we protect the environment for our coming generations. A company like OGDCL, so by virtue of its importance in terms of its size, being the largest corporate entity at the Pakistan Stock Exchange, so we have to act responsibly. We have to set the stage. So, keeping in view this sensitivity and the additional moral responsibility which comes with this leadership position, that we became the first ever public sector entity to issue an ESG report, which has now evolved into a sustainability report. So this was actually before it became sort of mandatory or obligatory. So when you start reporting, then you are actually opening yourself up to more visibility for all those who are your stakeholders or interested in you. And secondly, it also documents what you have achieved and what you aspire to achieve. So in our case, ESG is now an integral part of our business decision-making process, to the extent that board of directors has constituted a separate dedicated ESG committee of the directors to look into the compliance aspect, to look into how we are headed towards and where we are headed towards in terms of our ESG obligations. Because in the case of upstream petroleum sector, you are actually working very closely with remote areas, with communities which are otherwise vulnerable in terms of their economic circumstances. And so it is important that wherever you play your role as a responsible citizen. You invest in protecting the environment. You invest in your surrounding, the communities which surround your operational areas, in a meaningful, tangible, collaborative, respectable way.
A few lessons which we need to think through as we move forward as a country, as a nation. We cannot just focus on commercial reserves. We have to move toward having a strategic reserve. And the second thing is that जो हमारी journey है towards renewables, that has absolutely got to be accelerated. and reduction in terms of our reliance on fossil fuels as we go forward. So I think us journey में, whether this is solar, whether it's wind, whether it's hydro, in terms of in conjunction with the economic affairs division and ourselves, to find the right resourcing to get these projects accelerated so that we can get to a certain stage in terms of renewables, I think is going to be very critical.
Everything we've seen so far is only what happens above the surface. Below it, something else has been happening all along. Beneath the surface, life is not competing, it is connected. Roots speak to roots through threads of fungus finer than a human hair. One tree in trouble can send a warning through the soil, and its neighbors respond. Sharing water, sharing nutrients, feeding a stranger's roots for no reason other than we are the same system. This is how survival has always worked, and perhaps how humanity survives too, with the ability still to heal.
Since, last 15, 20 years, there has been a realization that it's mainly a public health and primarily a human health issue. That is realized later. Otherwise, people have been relating it's a planetary issue, save the planet, Still, you see a lot of documentaries talking about just saving the planet, not talking about saving the human beings from climate change. So I think that shift has happened subtly, but still people are more into considering as an environmental issue rather than a human health issue. It's a human health emergency rather. And one more problem with the climate change has been, it's going to happen sometimes in the future, because there's a lot of projections in this science. And people have been really, it will happen next century, or it will happen next 50 years, the heat will, there'll be higher heat and all of that. But it's not like that. It's happening now. And it's happening today.
The planet was listening before we had names for the storms. It is still listening now. The mark we leave next is still ours to choose.